Rational thinking means understanding that emotion decides, but habit keeps you there. And the worst part? You think you're using your head, but really it's just your heart yelling, dressed up as logic. Have you noticed how we invent logical arguments to justify decisions that, deep down, were already made on an emotional level? Like when you say it's better this way, but inside you're just trying to survive the fear of change. The truth is the brain does think, but the heart calls the shots. And habit just goes along with it. Have you ever been through that? Tell me in the comments. Today I want to show you how this trio, emotion, reason, and habit, puts you in an invisible loop. And more importantly, how to break out of it with a practical mindset, no cheesy self-help talk. Stay with me till the end, because this might be the key you've been looking for all these years. You feel it first, then invent a rational excuse. Rational is knowing that emotion decides, but habit keeps you there. And the worst part? You think you're using your head, but it's just your heart yelling disguised as logic. The rational illusion, when emotion puts on a suit and tie. Have you noticed how we're really good at rationalizing everything after we feel it? You start distancing yourself from someone. You feel the discomfort, the irritation, the exhaustion, but you don't accept that. So you start listing logical reasons. We don't share the same values. The timing's off. I need to focus on myself right now. All true? Maybe. But the raw truth hit you first. You just couldn't take it anymore. And that's how it goes for almost everything. You didn't quit your job because you carefully weighed the pros and cons. You quit because you couldn't hold back tears on Sunday nights. You didn't pick that partner because it was your best logical choice. You did it because you felt something. Desire, passion, attachment, fear of being alone. Rationalization only shows up later so you don't seem irrational. Hume knew it. Reason is a sidekick. David Hume, a major figure in British empiricism, said it over 2 centuries ago. Reason is, and ought only to be, the slave of the passions, meaning, you feel first. Reason only shows up later to obey. It's not that reason has no value. It's just not the driving force, it's your justification mechanism. And this isn't just philosophy, it's biology. Studies with patients who had damage to their limbic system, the emotional center of the brain, showed they lost the ability to make simple decisions, even though their rational capacity was intact. In other words, without emotion, reason stalls. Rationalization as an emotional escape. Rationalization is our favorite disguise, a socially acceptable way to explain what we've already decided to feel. You say it was a strategic move, but it was really fear of losing. I thought it was the sensible thing, but it was just easier. It was a well-thought-out decision, but it really came from your gut. How many times have you heard or said, I just followed my heart, but when it all went south you said, I was being too rational? No, you just wanted to fool yourself. The uncomfortable truth, most of your decisions aren't rational. They're emotional, immediate, instinctive. You pick the car because of how it looks, but say it's for the gas mileage. You buy the new phone because you needed it, but really you just wanted to feel up to date. You stay in a toxic relationship because nobody's perfect, but you're really just scared to start over. Logic appears afterward, with arguments, spreadsheets, or pretty quotes on Instagram. But the deepest truth is in what you felt before you started thinking. If this has ever happened to you, comment, I needed to hear this. The emotion loop, decision, excuse, repeat. This cycle goes like this. You feel, you act, or freeze. You rationalize, you repeat. That's why so many people stay stuck in patterns, repetitive relationships, decisions that leave you with the same emptiness, cycles that seem thought out, but are actually just emotional. Your mind builds logical castles to hide emotional voids. You swear you're being rational, but you're really trying to avoid your pain. Emotion is not thought, but it sure feels like it. Here's the key point. Feeling is not thinking, but it feels like it sometimes. Your heart sends a signal. Your mind interprets it as an idea. You feel anger and immediately think, he disrespected me. You feel longing and immediately think, I guess I still love him. You feel anxiety and think, it's better not to change right now. That thought isn't rational, it's emotion, dressed up as logic. The thought-out ending that was actually emotional. Imagine a woman named Lara. She spent months saying the relationship had gone cold, that they had different mindsets, that she didn't see a future. But she'd known this deep down from the day he stayed silent during one of her crises. Emotionally, she'd already decided. She just spent months gathering rational evidence. The decision was made. She just needed arguments to convince herself she was being mature. Ever lived something like that? Tell me in the comments. So is it wrong to use reason? No. Reason is crucial, but it shouldn't be used to hide what you feel. It should be used to organize what you feel. Healthy rationality acknowledges emotion as the starting point. Then it builds a clear way to handle it. The problem comes when we use logic to pretend we don't feel anything. That's when we become experts at self-deception. What's a truth that nobody wants to admit in your opinion? Drop it in the comments. Let's put it all out there. The courage to admit how you feel. As long as you try to look super rational all the time, you'll keep making poorly resolved emotional decisions. You'll stay stuck in cycles disguised as logic. You'll keep calling caution what's really fear. This is the key. Own what you feel, then think. Never the other way around. Because there's something even more dangerous than feeling and rationalizing, confusing feelings with thoughts. Feeling is not thinking, but it sure seems that way. And that's where the deepest self-deception happens. In the next chapter, we'll expose how this emotional mental mix traps you in decisions you swear are logical, but are really just emotional noise you're misreading. This conversation doesn't end here. Come with me to the next block. Feeling is not thinking, but it sure feels like it is. But what I feel doesn't matter. Of course it matters. It's just not an argument. Feeling isn't wrong. The mistake is believing it's enough. The problem isn't feeling. The problem is using how you feel as proof that you're right. You say you felt rejected, so you conclude the other person was cruel. You feel anxious about a change, so you decide it's not the right time. You feel angry and turn that into absolute certainty you were treated unfairly. But take a breath and think with me. Did you feel something or did you think something? Because that makes all the difference. Emotion dressed up as truth. Let's be honest. How many arguments have you seen, or been in, where nobody listens to each other? They just want to validate the pain they're feeling. It's like emotion alone gives you a right to absolute truth. But truth isn't emotion. Truth is what stands regardless of how you feel. You think you were treated unfairly. But is that a fact or just your emotional perception? A simple example. Tone of voice. Check this out. Someone replies in a curt tone. You feel they were rude, but were they? Or maybe you were feeling sensitive, expecting warmth, and anything less felt harsh. The feeling is real. But what does it prove? Not much, really. It just proves you felt that way. It doesn't prove what happened for sure. Descartes believed thinking was everything. René Descartes, the I think therefore I am guy, believed pure reason was the safest path to truth. But in the real world, decisions are driven more by emotion disguised as logic. You feel, interpret, conclude, and then believe you thought it all out. But did you really? When feelings become arguments, chaos ensues. Ever been in a debate where no one's actually trying to understand the other side, just to justify their own pain? That's what happens. You were cold. No, you're just being dramatic. No one stops to check reality. They're both defending their own feelings like facts. The result? An unsolvable fight. Bruised egos. Parallel truths. Side effect: you start trusting your feelings too much. Here's the danger: you begin to think feeling is being right, and then you become a hostage to your own emotions. Anything that bothers you must mean someone else messed up. Anything that scares you must be a sign it's dangerous. Anything that makes you emotional must be true. But maybe it's just an internal reflection. Maybe it's just your emotional history talking louder than the facts. Making sense so far? Type yes down here. So what do you do then? Acknowledge what you feel. Denying your feelings only makes it worse. Observe before reacting. What you feel is a clue, not a verdict. Question your emotional story. It might be right, or it might not. Look for evidence. Does what you're feeling match reality, or is it just a projection? Make space to listen. Not everything is about you. Not every pain has a villain. Not everything you feel is a fact. You might feel rejected, but maybe they were just distracted. You might feel disrespected, but maybe you interpreted it through an old wound. You might feel something's wrong, but maybe you're just scared of change. Your feelings are a compass, not a map. They show an emotional direction, but you still need to walk that path with awareness. But there's a sneakier villain than emotion disguised as thought: habit. That autopilot that makes you repeat the same decisions even when you know they're wrong. Habit controls you more than emotion or reason, and you don't even notice. In the next chapter, I'll show you how your brain saves energy through unconscious habits, and how that might be sabotaging your life without you realizing it. This conversation isn't over. Join me for the next video. Habit controls you more than emotion or reason. You're not only controlled by what you feel, you're a hostage to what you keep repeating without realizing. Let me start with a simple question. Do you think you make your decisions based on emotion or reason? If you picked either one, you're already off track. Because in reality, habit is in charge. And the scariest part? It's in charge in silence. Habit is your brain on energy saver mode. Your brain hates wasting energy. Thinking is tiring. Feeling is draining. Deciding wears you out. So it automates whatever it can. The more you repeat a reaction, a choice, or an escape, the more it becomes your default setting. And then, you don't even need emotion or logic anymore. You act without noticing. Hume said the mind learns by habit. David Hume, that same guy who said reason is a slave to passion, took it further. He believed the mind works by repetitive association. Meaning, you don't just feel anger because someone offended you. You feel anger because you've learned to react that way whenever you're hurt. It's not just the situation that triggers the feeling. It's the pattern you've reinforced for years. A practical example. The sarcastic person, you know, that person who replies to everything with sarcasm? They're not sarcastic by birth. They learned that sarcasm is a solid defense mechanism. It protects them from vulnerability, gives an illusion of superiority, avoids real confrontation. Now every time they feel threatened, bam, out comes the sarcasm. They don't even think about it. They just do it, because that habit took over. Emotion plus repetition, a behavioral prison. Sure, you might feel pain, fear, desire, but what you do with that feeling is almost always what you've always done. You don't self-sabotage just because you have low self-esteem. You self-sabotage because you've repeated that behavior so many times it's become automatic. You don't avoid conflict because you're shy. You avoid it because you learned that staying quiet is safer. And now even when you should speak up, you stay silent. Habit doesn't need emotion or logic. All it needs is repetition. That's why it's so dangerous. Emotion shouts, reason argues, but habit makes you act without making a sound. You think you're choosing, but you're just following the same old script, the invisible saboteur. Take this example. Every time a new opportunity comes along, a relationship, a promotion, a life change, you freeze. You feel anxious. You come up with tons of rational justifications, but actually, it's just your self-sabotage habit kicking in. You learned that growth hurts, that the new can bring pain, that love can wound you. So your habit is, better not risk it. You might feel, but your habit decides what you do with it. You feel sad. You eat. You feel rejected. You withdraw. You feel desire. You sabotage yourself. You feel anger. You attack or run. The sensation might be different, but the response is always the same. That's no longer just emotion. It's a conditioned emotional pattern. What if your pattern is people-pleasing? That's classic. You feel uncomfortable, want to say no, but you smile and say it's all good. Not because you want to, but because you got used to pleasing people just to be accepted. So even now that you're grown, you keep doing what others want, swallowing your discomfort, calling it maturity. But it's just a habit. And when habit goes unchecked, it can turn into a fake identity. A tough question, but you need to ask it. Are you repeating this behavior because you want to, or because you always have? What's a truth that no one has the guts to say, in your opinion? Comment below. Let's uncover some hidden habits. How do you change this? You don't break a habit with sheer willpower. You break it with awareness plus new repetition. Identify the pattern. Which automatic response holds you back the most? Interrupt the cycle. When you notice the impulse, pause, breathe, observe, create a new response, even a small one. Instead of running away, say, I need a moment. Instead of people-pleasing, say, I don't want that. Instead of self-sabotaging, say, I'll try anyway. Repeat, every single day. The only thing stronger than an old habit is a new habit practiced consistently. A habit isn't a life sentence, but it is a system. Your current behavior isn't your destiny. It's just the reflection of a system you've repeated for years. The good news? You can reprogram it. With time, patience, and choice. But only if you stop calling my personality what's really just conditioning. Habit ends up deciding even when you think you're in control. You can feel, you can think, but in the end, it's what you repeat that shapes your life. And if you don't question your habits, they'll keep running the show as if they are you. There's a secret about habits that no one tells you, though. They're not formed in the present. They're born out of unresolved emotional baggage from the past. In the next chapter, we're heading back in time. Because to change what you're doing today, you have to understand what hurt you yesterday. You've recognized your pattern. Now let's check its origin. See you there. The past that programs your habits. You don't act the way you do by accident. You repeat. And what you repeat usually comes from where you were once hurt. Today's behavior comes from yesterday's pain. You know that's just how I am attitude? That habit of avoiding confrontation, always pleasing others, or running when someone gets too close. Yeah, you weren't born with it. It got shaped. You weren't born with it. By what you saw, by what you heard, by what you were too scared to feel. A habit is emotional survival in disguise as personality. Childhood's emotional echo. You could be 30, 40, 50 years old, but sometimes the one reacting for you is your 7-year-old wounded self. That kid who heard, "Stop crying. You're too sensitive. Don't do that or nobody will like you." So silently, she made some rules. Feeling things is dangerous. Speaking up hurts. It's better to adapt than be rejected. Those invisible laws became emotional systems. Now they control your habits, even if the world around you has changed. A real example, the adult who avoids intimacy. Lucas, 35. Whenever someone gets too close, he finds a way out. He says he doesn't want a relationship, that he's rational, that he's just not built for it. But when you dig deeper, his mom was emotionally unstable. Affection always came with demands. Love came with criticism. So he learned, love hurts. Attachment traps you, better to avoid it. Now every new relationship sets off that old emotional alarm. He runs but calls it freedom. It's not really a choice. It's an old habit rooted in a scar. The brain stores trauma as an action pattern. When you experience something intense or painful, your brain doesn't just feel it. It stores it as a reference. If it hurt, avoid it next time. If it was unpredictable, control everything now. If someone betrayed you, don't trust anyone. You call it being cautious. But it might just be your past deciding for you. The danger of not reframing your pain. Whatever you don't heal, you repeat. And you don't realize you're repeating it. You just feel uneasy, like, I don't know why, or get annoyed when anything threatens your usual routine. That's why you sabotage yourself when things are finally going well. Avoid new beginnings even though you crave them. Feel anxious in situations where you should feel happy. You're not living in the present. You're reliving the past, disguised as today. Finish this sentence. Being an adult in Brazil means, share it in the comments. Let's vent together. The emotional mind is timeless. Your body grows older, but the pain is stored in a corner of your memory, frozen in time. Whenever something reminds you of that old scene, you react like you would have back then. It's not an overreaction. It's a survival mechanism. You're not weak. You've just been trained to survive even when you don't have to anymore. Childhood repeating itself at work, in love, everywhere. Do you feel like you're always explaining yourself? That nobody gets you? That you have to earn everyone's love? Look closely. Maybe it didn't start now. Maybe it's just an echo from way back. Your work relationship with authority might reflect your relationship with your dad. Your pattern of letting yourself get overshadowed in a relationship might reflect the fear of displeasing your mom. Your fear of public speaking might go back to when kids laughed at you in school. And if you never face this, you'll keep calling it my way. But it isn't your way. It's just the way you learn to avoid getting hurt. Yes, it might have worked once, but now it's holding you back, keeping you hidden, stopping you. Worst of all, it convinces you this limited version of you is the best you can be. If this chapter moved you, share a single word that describes how you feel right now. How do you break the cycle? You don't need to erase the past. You need to look at it with new eyes. Recognize the patterns. Which habits are really holding you back? Trace your emotional timeline. Where did you learn them? When did you first feel this way? Name your pain. Saying I felt alone is the first step to stop isolating yourself. Create new safe experiences. Each time you live a different, healthier experience, your brain learns it's safe to act differently. Have compassion for yourself, you're not weak. You've just been surviving with the tools you had. A habit forms where pain got ignored. If you really want to change your habits, you need to go back to where they started. They didn't come from choice. They came to protect you. You only free yourself by facing that protection and saying, "Thanks for helping me until now, but I choose differently today." Once you see where the pain began, that's when the real challenge starts. Repeating the new thing until it becomes who you are. In the next chapter, I'll show you how to create new emotional patterns that are conscious and consistent. Because it's not enough to just understand, you have to reprogram. We've dived into the origin. Now let's build our way out. See you there. You're not what happened to you, but you'll keep being that if you don't have the courage to change what you keep repeating. Because until you reprogram what the past taught you, your future is just a déjà vu disguised as a choice. In the next video, I'll show you how to break this cycle in practice. Click here and keep going with me. If this content made you think of someone, share it with them now. It might be exactly what they need to hear today. And if you want to keep going on this path of conscious transformation, click subscribe and turn on notifications. Here, we don't deliver empty cliches. We give you the keys to unlock whatever's locked inside you. Are we in this together?